Now we're going to add lasers to our game. Before we put lasers in our player's hand, I want to put them on the floor with some switches that we can use to toggle on and off. To do that, we're going to need to grab the Kenny NL pack that has all of the requests. This is the Platformer Art Requests pack. I'll link this down below, but you can grab it and then open it up, and you should find inside there's a tiles and a vector folder. I'm going to go into the tiles folder. What we're going to do is just copy this entire folder. In fact, what I'll do is actually go up one level. I'll copy this tiles folder. I don't need the preview or the vector ones. And then I'm going to go into my project folder. So find my project folder, go right into the art subfolder, and I don't want to put it into the tiles folder. Instead, I'm going to create a new subfolder called, let's call this lasers. It's requests, but I want to call it lasers because that's what it actually has, and it is my lasers. I'll hit show in Explorer in that folder. We'll go into the folder and paste in the tiles subfolder. So now I should get that other folder of tiles right in here. There we go. And then finally, I'm going to go into this folder. I think actually what I want to do is select everything. So I'll go in the folder, Control A, and I'm going to hit Control X. Go up one level into the lasers folder and paste all of my files into here. Now I can get rid of this extra tiles folder and just have a lasers folder with all of my files in it. There we go. The paste just finished. My tiles subfolder should be empty. I could have also just selected all of those files from the zip and pasted them in as well, but I did it slightly different, and I just wanted to show that process. So here I should get my lasers all importing. So it's going to be lasers and beams and other things. I need to make sure that I set the pixels per unit here. You can take a look at these and see that these are actually set to 70 by 70 on all of these textures. So what I want to do is select the first one, go down to the last one, hold shift and hit select, and I can see that, oh, one sprite is selected. So I need to go find the one entry that's not correct. And if I can't tell what it is, the easiest way to do it is to just drag this list down. And I should be able to see the one entry that looks slightly different. Let's see if I can find it. I have not found it yet, but I can also just scroll through here until I see it change. Why am I not seeing? Okay, maybe let's go start to end. I am not finding the one that's bad. Do I have one expanded? I'll just hit the down arrow until I find the one that shows no. Oh, here it is. It's this one right here. Laser blue vertical was expanded. That was causing the problem. So with it collapsed, I'll hit home. Shift end, that should select them all, perfect. And then I'm going to set that pixels per unit to 70 so that it matches with these sprites that I've just pulled in. That should make it so that each sprite is still 1 meter by 1 meter. Let's go check that out. I've got my sprites set, and I'm going to take, let's see, what's a good one to grab? Let's do this blue laser. No, let's take the yellow laser switch. I'm going to take it, drag it right out here. Yeah, I can see that looks like it's about 1 cube by 1 cube. In fact, it should be exactly 1 cube by 1 cube. So drop it out. I'll fix up the position to be a 4 and a negative 3.5, which is just where my ground is. And then I'm going to rename this to laser switch. It's defaulting to the off position. That's the one that I grabbed, the off, so it's off to the left. And I expect that when I push it to the right, I want to make it change to that and then turn some laser on. The next thing I'm going to need to do is create a script for this. I'm going to need some sort of a laser switch script or a toggle script or something like that. I'll go into the scripts folder, right click, and choose create C# script. We'll call this laser switch, since that's what we're putting it on. And then once that script is created, as soon as it finishes, there we go, I'll go minimize the code editor and I'm going to assign it to my laser switch. Let's go select it and assign. Now there are a couple things that I want to do with this switch. I want to change the graphic, and then I want to make it toggle or do something. And I want to have it interact when I walk through it. So if I walk forward through it, it'll turn on. If I walk backwards through it, it'll turn off. I could also bind this up to a hotkey or something so I could toggle it on and off. But I'm thinking right now, it's just like walk through it, walk to the right, it turns on. Walk to the left, it turns off. So I can accomplish that by opening up my laser script. And first, I'm going to add some references for the two images that I want to have, the on and the off images, or the left and the right sprite. So I add some serialized fields here up at the top. I'll do serialized field, and this will be a sprite. And I'll call this underscore left. and then I'll duplicate it and make an underscore right. So I've got 2 sprites there. I'm going to delete this comment about the start method. In fact, I'm going to rename start to awake because I want to just cache and save a variable, which will be our sprite renderer. And I tend to cache and save variables in awake so that they're ready for anything else that might need them later. So I'm going to put an underscore sprite renderer equals get component, and we'll give it a sprite renderer type. There we go, that last one. Now I'll hit home, alt enter, and generate a field for it. So we've got that sprite renderer. I'm just going to go to the private keyword and hit enter so I can get a new line and get rid of it all at once. And then we're going to look for an on collision or an on trigger stay. So we're going to delete the update method, and we're going to add an on trigger stay 2D. What this will do is fire off or get called every frame we have something inside of our trigger area. Now we're going to add a trigger area in a moment. It's very simple. It's just like adding a collider. But we can do some extra or get some extra info with this. Because we can stay inside of it, we can now look at the player and see what direction the player is moving, and then turn ourselves on and off based on what direction that player is moving. First thing we need to do, though, is make sure that we're actually colliding with a player. So we'll say var player equals collision.getComponent, and we'll get a player. Now this is able to get me the component from the collision because it's named collision, but this is actually a collider 2D. The name of this variable by default I think is terrible. It should probably be collider, but it's named wrong or named oddly, so you can still get that component. If this was a collision 2D, you would have to get the game object or the collider object first. But since it's a collider 2D, you can get it right away. Now, if we don't have a player, we want to return and do nothing. So we'll say if player is equal to null, then return. We're going to do another one of those early exits because there's no player here, nothing to read. Next, we want to determine what direction the player is moving. And to do that, we're just going to read or access the rigid body. So we'll say var rigid body. Let's see if I can spell that right. RIGID body equals, and here we'll do player.getComponent, and we'll get the rigid body 2D. Once we have that, we should be able to tell what direction the player is moving. So we can say if rigidbody.velocity.x is greater than 0, so if they're moving to the right, then let's turn it to the right mode or turn it on. So we'll say turn on. I'll hit alt enter and generate a method for it. And then if they're going to the left, which would make their velocity.x less than 0, so 0 means they're not moving at all, positive x means they're going to the right, and negative x means they're going to the left. So if they're going to the left, we'll just turn it off. And to do that, I'm going to duplicate lines 25 and 26. I'll select them both, Control D, click right here and hit enter, and then add the word else. So else if the rigid body velocity is less than 0, so switch that greater than to a less than, then we'll call turn off. We'll generate a method for turn off as well. Make sure that you don't rename turn on to turn off, but we just want to generate a new method. And now we've got a turn on and a turn off method. The final thing that we'll do in this section here is update our sprite so that our sprite renderer shows either the left or the right sprite, depending on if we've turned on or off. So in the off mode, we'll set our sprite renderer sprite to the left one, underscore left, and I'll copy that line down for turn on, and we'll set it to the right sprite. So now we should get the toggle happening when we run through it and having it switch our sprite back and forth. But before that happens, we're going to need to add our trigger and assign our 2 sprites. So first, let's assign the sprites. We'll go to the lasers folder. We've got the off sprite for left and the on sprite for right. Then we'll go add a component, and we're going to add a box collider 2D. And the important part here is that we need to make sure that we check the is trigger box. That'll make it so that our player won't actually collide with it, but it'll instead just call back into our on trigger methods: on trigger enter, on trigger stay, and on trigger exit. Right now we're just using on trigger stay, and it should switch our sprite back and forth. Let's hit play, run over here and check it out. So I run to the right, it switches on. Run left, it switches off. So far, so good. I can toggle this thing back and forth pretty easily. Now I just need to make it actually do something. Before we do that, though, let's stop playing, make sure that we've saved our scene with our laser switch, and go in, create a prefab out of it. I'll go to my prefabs folder, and I'm going to take this laser switch. I'm going to name this yellow laser switch. because I might want to add multiple lasers with different colors, and I'm thinking I probably will. I'll drag that into the prefabs, save our scene, go to plastic, so we added the yellow laser switch. And check it in.